actually came out of this ongoing discussion that we were having about the violence on the show. What I wanted to do is do an episode where the violence was a cartoon. It's werewolves. It's the weirdest thing I could think of to do, just to try to make the statement that the violence doesn't matter. It's not about the violence. It's about what does this unsub think that he's accomplishing. What would this look like to a graphic artist if he was trying to explain his illness? And that's sort of the way True Night came to be. I don't think we've ever done an unsub that people felt more sorry for.
It was one of the best scripts I felt I had ever read, and the character was so interesting to me. Definitely extremely excited to be able to come in here and kind of show that I can act.
I'm working on something new.
I haven't done that much drama before. I've never actually had to be like a psycho or kill people or be angry. This is the first time as an actor I actually feel truly challenged. There's been so many crazy things that my character gets to do. You know, I have like the perfect moments with my girlfriend, and then getting attacked by a gang, and then choking out the driver of the car, and it's really interesting.
It's okay. I couldn't help her.
I asked you to. They made me.
It was very challenging, but Frankie was never afraid of it. He just was so fun to work with and brought colors to it that I didn't see coming, and he's just such a gifted young man.
Hey guys, that finishes Frankie. You're right.
Within this company, there was a palpable excitement to it. We were doing angles we don't do and lighting that we don't do. Rain, different ways to light the rain. It just is stuff we don't do.
Because we were trying to photograph a character's state of mind, basically trying to film hallucinations, we wanted a kind of hyper-real look.
It was a very different take on our show, and it was really fun to get inside the mind of a guy who was a comic book artist and graphic novelist who's had a psychotic break.
My end of it was the rain sequences. I'm adding some rain and some smoke and some steam, and I had some challenges because when they're shooting it so slow, the rain takes on a different look. So it was depending on the pressure I used and the water droplet size and everything to coexist with the scene, because the rain and the atmospherics and all that were part of the character.
The shots are very elaborately designed, and in this particular script you're going in and out of the cartoon panels.
We shot all of the crime scenes beforehand and then handed those to our artists. So instead of having a fantasy that turned into reality, we had the reality that turned into a fantasy, which is the way that it was written. These crime scenes take place, and then he goes back and he draws them. He thinks he's fantasizing when he's actually keeping a diary.
In keeping with the theme of a cartoon, which is very bold and not as detailed as a real photograph, we went very stark with the memory of what we called his downtown loft. I didn't worry about being real. Everything was just a beautiful object placed in heaven.
It was such a fantastic living space and very white and in complete contrast to the garret that he had rented as an artist studio. He couldn't just bring himself to go home anymore, so he'd rented this dump and was just working there. Supposedly to finish up another comic book called Blue, but then this other idea, this True Night, was kind of the cancer. We tried to set it up as if he'd gone in and he'd set up all his storyboards and his ideas for this other successful series. And then you see how this violent black and white and red comic had just kind of taken over and was just plastered up over and layered up over all the other stuff. Of course, it's really fun. It's nice to be able to step out and have the show be able to accommodate that.
It was totally cool because, here we are doing Criminal Minds, and I felt like I was working on a feature.
Now we're going to do this.
I had a phenomenal martial artist, James Liu, do all the fight stuff.
They were saying they wanted to get somebody doing sword work. I talked him into doing 2 swords instead of 1, and
they are.
And then, luckily enough, we found James.
I've learned everything from Tom.
Right. When I was a young man studying martial arts, I used to see James a lot in tournaments and doing demonstrations and stuff. So he's the best in my book. Click those things. Those are real aluminum blades. They're sharp. I mean, that would hurt you.
There are 2 stuntmen that are going to be the monsters. Considering distance and timing is important, because if they're too close and I'm swinging at them, there's always an inherent danger.
You take half a step forward. Yeah, just turn around once and do your swing, just for me.
The guy who did it was really fantastic, because we made this mask for him. And, I left it so he could see with his eyes, and we thought, well, we'll just blacken it with the makeup and he'll be fine. But he was such a good sport, because you could see through it. He turned it backwards so you couldn't see him at all, and he could still see and do the work with the swords and all of that. I designed a coat. I took an ethnic piece from Morocco and switched it around a little bit. With the wind machines, I wanted to be able to see something flowing, so it felt a little more of a fantasy.
This is day 4 of the True Night shoot. We are at the gang house with our Rocco wolf, variegator sort of creatures. Rocco wolf.
So this is a dream sequence where he thinks that these gang members that are hanging out on this porch are these monsters. He thinks of the arm that are over here. This one has its own alligator arms. It's not supposed to be any specific animal so much as it's supposed to be just scary bad guys.
You're seeing through his eyes. He's not seeing human beings. He's seeing something else. So what is he seeing? We decided to do that in silhouette, so that it was a monster, but instead of coming in for the big close-up, you let it be more kind of expressionistic.
True Night was one of our most ambitious episodes in terms of visual effects. We had 60, 70 visual effects. It was a massive undertaking. There was a camera that was shot at 1,500 to 3,000 frames per second to create fast speed and then go into slow motion. We treated it with rain. There were very subtle color treatments that we had to do. Just all this detail that goes into these shots that were phenomenal.
We had to manufacture blood sprays against green screen, so we'd make different blood patterns fly through the air, and they would take those various elements and then incorporate them into our green screen work.
The process kind of starts with shooting really high-speed action shots of our hero Knight slashing his way through some bad guys. We take that and marry that to a couple of green screen elements of slow-motion blood and guts and stuff, and then we're able to take those elements, bring them into another computer, and alter and change the color and space and add digital rain and basically come to almost a previs or work-in-progress shot right on set before we leave tonight, so we know that the look that we're trying to accomplish can be done later in post.
The challenges of a sequence like this are, where do you speed up? Where do you slow down? Where do you manipulate it? We're given literally raw dailies. It offers a chance to play, which is really fun. I thought, well, what does a comic book look like? A comic book is close-ups, it's wide shots, it's Dutch, and graphic novels even go further than that with single frames of a piece here and there. So having the footage like this is like a blank piece of paper.
The score in True Night is just brilliant. What I tell them is the things I listened to while I was writing it. And they sort of take that and manage to mix it all down into, a trip-hop saxophone Harlem Nocturne score that's just like, oh my God, that's so perfect.
The composers really were able to spread their wings. It was such a big show. It really lent itself to this action fantasy world. Very thematic, very cinematic, really a fantastic effort.
With True Night, we had to tie in kind of this feeling of the superhero kind of comic book feel. It was a chance for us to go outside of our normal palette to superhero music. And that's not often applicable in Criminal Minds, but it worked so nicely because of the way Ed directed it and they cut it. It lent itself to that, and it really worked magically. And then a theme for Frankie when he's at the mental institution and when he's not in the superhero mode. We wrote a piano theme which was haunting and kind of felt right for his character. He had this duality, which was cool to work with musically.
I knew at the time that it was a big risk to take, but we thought, for one episode, let's just be with the guy and find out that he's not really a bad guy. And we just tried to do something, a little bit different in that regard.
And action.
As a testament to this company, everyone went, yeah, we're gonna do a comic book. From top to bottom, it was just an example of what this crew and this company can do if you push them and say, we want to do something a little bit different this week. But I will say to the weekly fans, thank you, because you allow us to be able to do this. We actually gave a lot of thought to you and whether you would be disappointed in this, but thank you for letting me sort of spread my wings a little bit, and thanks for hanging in there with us and coming back the next week.